So I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. I'm Heidi Garvin from GROW Nebraska, and I'm our Program Services Coordinator. So if you ever have any questions about what GROW Nebraska does, just give me a call. And I would like to thank everyone for attending today. Some other people will probably be joining us as we go, but we're going to go ahead and get started so that we have the full time for the presentation and questions. I'd like to say thank you to REAP, the Rural Enterprise Assistance Project. They are our sponsor for this month's training. And in your reminder email, there should be some more information about REAP and the Women's Business Center if you care to check it out. Our presenter today is Jill Slupe, owner of Verde Martin. Her company specializes in sales acceleration and has offices in Omaha and Chicago. Jill is going to answer that all-important question, why do they buy? And Jill, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. So from your handout, you can kind of see that I broke the discussion today down into two sections. The first being, kind of tools for deepening that client relationship and some things so we can actually understand the buyer from a scientific and much more like on a personal level. And then the second half will be it's not as fun, I'll be really honest. It's a little bit dry in regards to defining how a customer buys. We break down the steps of the sale, and we're going to do an exercise there that you can apply to your business. The handout is incredibly tactical, so you should be able to take notes as we go through for each of the sections. And then just to kind of give you a little bit about myself, we started Verde Martin 7 years ago, really after listening to the customer and really understanding, when I first started working with small and medium-sized businesses in Omaha, really what they wanted, when I really listened, they thought they wanted to do advertising and they really wanted to, get the word out. And, when we really got down to it, what they really wanted to do was understand their sales process so they knew what leads to go after, what, channel to actually implement, what pricing should be, et cetera. So, and the steps of the sale are really fundamental in regards to that process. So that's why we're going to focus on that in the second half today. So in regards to, I'm going to start it off by really talking about understanding the customer and kind of what tools you can actually use with your clients, like on a one-on-one basis, and also tools that you can use for yourself, because there are times where it's very difficult to actually work with a client. And the first is what we refer to as positivity. And all of these, excuse me? So maybe I could ask a favor. If anyone wants to ask a question, please, feel free to ask it. But if possible, if you could put yourself on mute, it'd probably be beneficial for the group in general. So as I was saying, I'm going to talk about these 5 areas first. And really, it's about connecting with the client. And that really is critical to strengthening not only your personal brand, but, your relationship with your client. And all 5 of these are very scientific tools. So the very first one I'm going to talk about is positivity. And Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina is a leading researcher on positivity. And study after study shows that people that have a higher ratio of positivity to negative emotions fare much better not only in life, but especially in sales. Basically, optimism is defined as kind of a 3-to-1 positive to negative emotional ratio. And some people, you might think, oh my gosh, they're an absolute optimist or a pessimist, and positively relates to this. And a lot of times, when we're working with a client, et cetera, they automatically assume that we, as the delivering agent, will be positive. And sometimes that can be very, very difficult. So I just want to kind of give you guys a little bit of research I'm weirdly kind of an academic and a business owner. So I teach at Creighton University in their undergrad program in the fall, and in the spring, and I teach at Midland University in their MBA program in the fall. And again, what I teach is really that the whole sales process and that strategy of selling. So part of the information I want to talk to you today is very scientific and or it's based on scientific research, because I'm a big believer in understanding the whole academic aspect, but then applying it in a very tactical format so when you're selling. And what I wanted to tell you about was MetLife in Pennsylvania did a very interesting study. And they were actually measuring, I don't know if any of you are in life insurance sales, but it's a very difficult sale, because you're really selling something a lot of times that, it's not like someone can hold it. It's and they did this. MetLife did this pretty interesting study where each agent took a psychological assessment, and then MetLife followed them for 2 years. And on an optimism scale, the most optimistic half sold 37% more insurance than the pessimistic half. And on top of that, agents at the very top sold 88% more insurance than those at the bottom. So in regards to, making your life and making the sale positive, and I'll give you some suggestions on how to do that shortly. But the other aspect as to why it was so important to MetLife was in regards to their turnover. So pessimists resign twice as often as optimists. So from a point of view of profitability and hiring, again, hiring more positive people. I don't know if there's any HR people on the call, but I have wanted to partner with a large company to actually to do this study again because I think it's just so powerful. And on an emotional level, in regards to how the positivity ratio really works, it's kind of what goes on in our head. It's how we explain negative events to ourselves, and or you could consider it like that self-talk after, so to speak, an experience. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was really is how to learn to turn maybe negative thoughts kind of into a positive thought. And really, there's a few ways to actually to do that. Part of it is asking yourself a good question, and it's not, so let's just say something negative happens, like, oh my gosh, you get a speeding ticket, right? It's probably happened to all of us. There's a variety of things that kind of go on in our head. But a natural question would be gosh, why did I get that speeding ticket? Well, because I was speeding, right? And then it might relate to, gosh, I didn't leave the house in time, for an event. But part of that is if we can take any negative event or, a client said no to us, and kind of, convert that into either a learning lesson more than, oh my gosh, I screwed that up. Really focusing on the positive in our minds versus the negative is incredibly, it leads to success. And kind of how you do that is by starting by just, checking in, like just checking in with yourself and surrounding yourself with positive people. Another aspect is to actually incorporate humor into your life. And weirdly, the healthier people are, the happier people are, or more positive in their lifestyle. So weirdly, having a healthy diet and exercising can drive your positivity. Let me give you a couple examples of maybe kind of things that, negative self-talk versus positive self-talk, and then I'll wrap up this topic. But let's just say you're approaching something and it's something that you've never done before. You can actually have the thought in your head of, gosh, I've never done this before. Or you could have a positive thought of, this is an opportunity to learn something new. Or it could be, this is too complicated. It would kind of be a negative thought. Or, I'm going to tackle this from a different angle. And again, try to trying really, to incorporate positive thought into your day makes you a little bit more successful, not only in your sales, but also in regards to working with your clients. So, and you can literally force yourself into positivity. And I'm sure that we've done all of this in regards to working with our customer, is how to demonstrate, positivity just simply is just to actually, like, even if you don't mean it, is to put a smile on your face, nod in agreement, and just to actually look happy. Because weirdly, we can actually mentally change our frame of thought by actually physically changing our body language. People who are positive, they're happier longer. They selling, so to speak, is easier. And if you need to add positivity to your life, there's a variety of ways to do that. But part of it is I see it as, let's just pretend your body is like a glass of water, right? Your goal is to kind of always keep that, your body, like, so to speak, full. There's a sales manager that for one of my clients, and weirdly, he goes home every single day to get what he calls his dose of love, and he takes his dog for a little walk and a little, potion of love, and comes back to the office, and he's, so to speak, filled up. If you're having, challenge, and some of your clients are maybe not necessarily, all that happy, is to schedule happy clients on each side of maybe a more challenging one. At PayPal, I did a project at PayPal, and one of the things that they talk about is that they just pull the team together and have like a 2-minute, meeting to talk about, hey, what's a success story? And weirdly, a little vitamin D and a 5-minute walk outside can absolutely, kind of, so to speak, fill you up. And, inviting and surrounding yourself with, positive people just on a regular basis. So does anyone else have any ideas on what they do to drive positivity in their life?
This is Sarah. You used the example of the speeding ticket. I always figure when something like that happens, it's the fact that I truly needed to slow down or something bad was going to happen to me.
And so it's like, and you're probably an optimist. I think that's great.
I am. and that whole business of, I'm an Aflac agent. I'm out cold calling. When I have a crabby call, I either have to sit in my car and self-talk for a while to get past that, or you just, okay, this one looks happier. This may not be the right order in terms of my driving time, but this one looks happier. I'm going to go there next.
Yeah, and weirdly, that you will probably be incredibly successful because you're taking those positivity strategies, and that sounds great. Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to social proof. So, have most of you heard of social proof? It's the psychological practice of basically mimicking the behaviors of those around us when we're unsure of an appropriate response or a behavior. So let's just say you're at a fancy dinner and they pull some, you're approached with some food item that you are not familiar with. You've never had that before. And in some cases, what we do is we look to others to actually understand, gosh, how should I consume this item? Do I pick it up with my hands? Do I eat it with a fork? Et cetera, et cetera. So we look to others for clues. And when we're unsure what to do, we naturally just follow others. So pretend you're walking down the street and there's a couple in front of you and they're stopped and they are looking up into the sky. More than likely, you also will stop and look up into the sky. And that is just what social proof is. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of how social proof has influenced behavior in both positive and negative ways. And then to really talk about this, because when we're working, how we can, so to speak, influence people and understand our clients, we can actually utilize social proof. I don't know if most of you are familiar with Cialdini, but in 2008, he's kind of he's a PhD out of the University of Arizona, and he's really kind of the pioneer of social proof. And he did a study to increase the compliance of towel usage at a hotel. So I don't know how many of you ever reuse your towel when you're staying at a hotel, but there's a lot of advantages to you, the customer, reusing your towel. And one of those is because it reduces the cost of washing it. It reduces the staff's time. It's less use of the towel, so it retains its value longer, et cetera. So there's a lot of advantages to the hotel to get you to actually reuse your towel. And so they did this interesting study. And what happened was they put small cards in all the rooms. And they did the study for 80 days, and they used 190 days initially. And the first card says, help the environment. Please reuse your towel. And then in half the rooms, and then in the other half the rooms, most people reuse their towel. Nothing about the environment. And weirdly, what happened is there was a 26% in the people most people reuse their towel, were more likely to reuse their towel than to actually help the environment. And I thought that was fascinating. Then they went back, and they were kind of not really, they were like, gosh, I'm not sure these are the best, maybe we could do better. So then they used the sign of most people reuse their towel, and then they used most people who stay in this room reuse their towel. And weirdly, the reuse standard, so to speak, went up to 33%. So social proof is used very often, and I'll give you a couple more examples. So most of you probably use Facebook. A like, so to speak, is social proof. With the internet, we are now informed all the time, and 70% of Americans are always looking at reviews. And 63 are more likely to purchase after looking at reviews, which is, in essence, social proof. So a lot of you have probably, heard of crowd wisdom, and so social proof, so to speak, is that crowd wisdom. So the greater number of people that find that you have the idea correct, the more that idea actually will be correct. So I'm sure some of you have used OpenTable, Foursquare, and of course Facebook, but they're all maximizing social proof. Social proof is an incredibly positive motivator. It drives people to take action. So picture, in a lot of organizations, it's what you want to call is feeding the tip jar. So at a coffee shop or at a bar, if there's a 5 in the tip jar or just change in the tip jar, weirdly, there will be significantly different tips. The same is at offering baskets in church. If there's, bigger bills in the offering plate, people are more likely to give more money than not. And these are all, research, but it's pretty, interesting in regards to, being able to understand the buyer by integrating social proof. The same goes for long lines. There's an ice cream place in Omaha called Ted and Wally, and I don't even like ice cream, but I have to tell you, when there's a line out the door, I feel compelled to want to go get in that line to see, why everybody's, buying this ice cream. And obviously it's great, but there is an attraction for us to go and get in that line. The same is the case in regards to like watching a comedy on TV. There's canned laughter very often. And what research shows is that people laugh longer when there is canned laughter than without. There have been a couple examples of where social proof has actually backfired, because social proof should be used when you want, to get your buyer, so to speak, to do what you want. In the book, Yes, the author has used an example of, in Arizona, the petrified forest. They had a sign that read, "Most visitors here remove petrified wood from the park, destroying its natural state of petrified forest." When people read that, they thought, oh my gosh, it's okay for me to steal. Everybody else steals. And after that sign went up, weirdly, theft tripled. So needless to say that they they shortly thereafter made a change. But again, you know, if you were to hear the stat, 46% of all Americans litter, you know, does that make it okay? It doesn't make it okay. But weirdly, there's this psychological aspect to us, is that if everyone else is doing it, it's okay for me to do it. So when you're incorporating and really trying to understand the customer, one of the things in regards to applying social proof to your business is in regards to telling a story so that there's an emotional connection versus just using statistics. The same goes for pictures with testimonials. The best is to always use a video testimonial, but research shows that even if you use a testimonial and the person looks unhappy, more than likely they're going to be the buyer will be less likely to buy than if you have a happy, smiling person in your testimonial. Social proof, again, having highlights, using customers' logos, so to speak, on the website, multitude of them, and the bigger the corporation, in essence, the better the brand. Incorporating social proof incorporates recommendations, celebrity endorsements, and those aspects. So just a couple ideas on how you can actually apply social proof to your business. Are there any comments or any questions in regards to social proof? I know I'm kind of going through this fast, but okay. All right, we are going to move on to touch. And literally, the power of touch moves everybody. People who are even lightly touched, even for a second, are more likely to participate in a requested behavior than those not touched. People feel in sync and connected when people actually are touching. And culturally, men touch more than women because they shake hands more readily than women do. So I would encourage women to, embrace shaking hands more. One of the studies talked about women who were touched even slightly on the forearm, or even just for a second, were more likely to give out their phone number or dance with someone than those that were not touched. Canvassers, collecting signatures for petitions, could collect only 55 signatures from non-touched and 88 from people who were touched. Another study showed used salesmen received much higher positive rewards for cars sold when the customer was touched. And we begin receiving, tactical signals at birth. So that whole touch aspect. And a couple other way interesting things. People who get touched a lot live longer. They have happier marriages. And there's a fascinating study that was done by the University of Illinois that measured physical contact between NBA teammates, like doing a chest bump or a high five and, maybe a back slap. And what the study revealed was the more court touching early in the season, the more successful the teams and the individuals were by the season end. So touch, physically what happens is that it lowers our stress hormones, and it actually can even, slow our heart rate. So, understanding the client and trying to communicate and really get to know them better, touch can be a huge advantage. And so can actually the next aspect I was going to quickly talk about was in regards to people who mimic. People who mimic the expressions of maybe nonverbal behavior of their clients have much more success and receive better reviews than those that do. And there's lots of things that you can mimic, right? You can mimic how far away you stand from someone. You can mimic an accent. You can mimic hand gestures or liking or positive feelings. So there's some really interesting things, such as a gesture or body language, the tone that you talk in, eye contact, maybe your posture. I have a client that I'm a little bit loud and a little bit enthusiastic, and I know when I have to go work with one of my clients that I really have to tone it down because I find that he's not as receptive when I'm at my height versus if I slow down. And one of the techniques is to watch people and then wait and then mimic and then maybe make a break. People that there's just some really nice statistics that if you mimic people, you're creating a bond and a connection with that end in mind. The next section before we jump into understanding the buyer and really laying out the steps of the buy is what we refer to as a remind marketing strategy. And it's really used to reinforce previous promotional or, relationship activities to kind of keep, your salesperson, so to speak, top of mind. So when you're working with that client, you can penetrate, so to speak, and understand that buyer. And you can, how I approach it is I kind of think of it as, when you get an oil change, right, on the inside, after you get an oil change, there's like a little sticky on the inside of your windshield. You literally want to become, for your client, understanding your buyer, that little sticky, right? So because you want, them to think of you. So that's all I have kind of on that whole remind. So we are going to take a deep dive in regards to understanding the buyer. And I'm going to just talk about two aspects for the next 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for specific questions. But if anyone has some, please, ask as we go. So it doesn't matter if you're buying a computer, you're buying a candy bar, or you're buying a cup of coffee. There's 6 steps to every single buy. And everything starts with a need, a want, or a problem. I'm just going to see what that looks like in your booklet. Give me 1 second. So, okay, yep, all right, so I have it in words. So that's great. Okay, so step 1 is that want. So how I think of it as, everybody has a need, a want, or a problem. The next step is awareness, right? So how do you actually, find that product or service that you want? Then you're going to collect knowledge, then you select. The close really is either a commitment to buy it or an actual transaction, and lastly is that value. So we're going to actually run through, I'm going to do an example of getting lunch, being that it's lunchtime, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little hungry. So I want you to pretend that right now it's 12:30 and you're between appointments and you have about 28 minutes till 1 o'clock to your next appointment, and you're literally starving, and you're driving down the kind of the main drag of your community, and you know that you have, so to speak, 26, 27 minutes to grab lunch and then to get to your next appointment. And the only challenge I'm going to throw in today is that you accidentally forgot your wallet at home or your purse, at home, and you basically have $6 to your name between your car and your briefcase and your person. So you're driving down the street, and what is your need? You are hungry, so you need some food. The next step would be that awareness concept, right? It's you're driving down, and what do you see? Gosh, you see a McDonald's on one side. You see a Village Inn on the other side. You see a grocery store coming up. You see, and you have to make a decision, right? Because you know that you only have 26 minutes, so you're really kind of limited on time. And these are that knowledge aspect, right? And because you have several options, but now you have to kind of weigh what are those options. Well, you have $6. So could you get something at McDonald's? You probably could. Could you get something at Village Inn? You probably could not, especially within your time constraints. So you make the decision, so to speak, to kind of go to McDonald's. And why did you do that? Is because of selection, right? And you made that decision when you turned the wheel and you drove into the parking lot at McDonald's. You went through the drive-through, you paid, you ordered, that would be your close. And then lastly would, be that value. So when you're trying to understand your buyer, part of is the first step is obviously to understand what their needs, their wants, or their problems are, and to really define what that can be. So because the next step is then if they have that need, that want, how are they actually going to find you? How are they, they need to understand, you need to understand how the customer finds you, so that you literally can be in all those areas. So if you're, driving down the street and you need a restaurant and you're not even familiar with that area, how would you actually tackle that? Well, the sign out front of that building would meet that need. But if you were going to think about, gosh, how is McDonald's actually, meeting that need, right? McDonald's spends a ton of money in regards to TV, advertising, radio. They do billboards. They definitely have big signs up front. So do you think that they really do searches online? Probably less, because McDonald's is much more of a it's not like you would order, so to speak, McDonald's online, right? You're already there when you're getting it, because usually it's a short process. So again, understanding the awareness on how you want to actually touch your customer. And then the next step is what knowledge? What knowledge does the prospect need to know to actually make a decision to purchase your product? So what, in regards to us getting lunch at McDonald's, what did they need to know? Well, we needed to know, they had to have an idea of what the price was, right? Because more than likely we've all eaten at McDonald's in the past, and we know that, gosh, even through the advertising on TV, we know we could probably, through their dollar menu, get lunch for $6. The other component is we have an idea that, we were short on time. So we know that, we could probably, grab lunch and eat it on our way to our next to our next appointment, and still have time. But the other thing is if that McDonald's wouldn't have been located right there going down Main Street, you probably would have had to pick a different alternative, right? So maybe you'd have gone to the grocery store. And then having some idea of what, the business, what products or services, that, product supplies. So there are times, I'm sure we've all done web searches, and there are companies that we've never heard of that we're collecting information from and potentially buying from, that we really don't know their reputation. And then, one of the key pieces here under the knowledge section is how hard is it or how easy is it to actually make that purchase. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute when we get to close, but again, we know, it's pretty easy to buy something at McDonald's. So you're in your car and you have an option. You go to McDonald's, you can go to a grocery store, you really can't go to Village Inn. So at that point, it's selection time, right? Our next step is to select. And what are the big components as to why we probably selected McDonald's? Well, the first was we had limited time. The second was we had limited budget. The third was they were right there when I was driving by. So that's where we decided, to make that stop. So that's the three pieces. And selection can be incredibly difficult or incredibly easy when you're, so to speak, mapping out the steps of the buy. And because it's usually the ultimate reason why someone makes the purchase and buys from you. So the next step in the sale would actually be the close, right? And again, as I talked about just briefly a second ago, is that if possible, we want to make that as easy and painless for the client as possible. Amazon is the best example. They have mastered the checkout, right? It's one click. And the easier you can actually get people to close, better. So I was at a big box store recently, and the lines were incredibly long. And there was a gentleman that was, right before me, and he just, he had lost it in regards to his patience for checking out. So he just, put his stuff to the side and told the cashier, hey, I just can't wait any longer, and he went off. So I just kept thinking, gosh, here this guy, this store had gotten him, to go pick out their stuff, get into line, and he had just lost patience in regards to, because the close was so difficult. So if possible, it's not the most important aspect in regards to the steps of the sale. Knowledge is actually more important because you want to make sure that your buyer has all the information possible to actually make a decision. But the close, comes probably is in third place in regards to making the buying process so much easier. And then lastly, let's just talk about value. The value, again, it's difficult for the selling organization to understand value unless we really listen to the customer. But let's just use, our McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, we got McDonald's, and we paid for it, and we went on our way. So some of the value for our lunch at McDonald's was number one, was I satisfied? Because I was starving before I went there. I got lunch under my $6, and, do I feel great? Am I satisfied? And in this case, I did. But there might have been a negative value also, right? What if I had gotten a terrible tummy ache? Or as I put that soda into my car, the lid wasn't right, completely closed, and now there's soda all over my car. Or, was there ketchup on the bag? Or did I get the right, the correct change? There's a lot of aspects in regards to every single business of things that can go wrong. But fundamentally, understanding the value and what's so important to the client, and this directly relates, again, in regards to the needs, the wants, and the problems, pulling back to our first step. So if we are clearly understand that, then we can clearly deliver a product and then in fact deliver that great value. So the next piece of your handout really just kind of what I refer to as talks about what's clarity. And that is really the practice of learning about your client, the mission, short-term and long-term goals. And it's really what we refer to as kind of the foundation. And why is this important for understanding the buyer? Because weirdly, buyers want to align themselves with organizations that, so to speak, mimic them or are similar. And so by, again, having an idea and communicating clarity in regards to what your organization is about is incredibly important. Just briefly, in regards to, the first part of the exercise is talking about your values. And there's times I almost want to put the word brand in parentheses next to the values, because so often your values roll up in regards to what your brand stands for. And the purpose is pretty simple. It's what your company does. I work with an exterminator, and I love his purpose. It's, hey, we kill bugs, and it's pretty clear. Again, clarity being just such a positive aspect. The mission is pretty simple. Again, I wanted to just to talk about difference here in regards to the mission versus the vision. The mission is really, it's what really it defines it incorporates the purpose and the values of the organization, but it really answers what are we trying to accomplish. So for Starbucks, their mission is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at the time. The vision, on the other hand, is really about where the business is going. And if you were going to relate that to Starbucks, really what they do is their goal or their vision, so to speak, is to establish Starbucks as the world's most recognized brand in the world. Now that is significantly different, right, than to nurture the human spirit, one cup, one person, and one neighborhood at a time. So by being able to communicate this, to your customer, and so that your customer can again align themselves, with that understanding, that clarity, is just incredibly beneficial. So I've kind of buzzed through this. We're at our 45-minute mark, so I just wanted to see if there's any questions, comments, etc. No? Okay.
No.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's been a lot of good information.
Oh, good. Well, I kind of feel like I went pretty quickly, so I wanted to invite all of you also. I send out a weekly newsletter. It's not to sell you anything, but there is some really valuable marketing information. So if I will add the people on today. And if you ever, it's just an email to get off, just saying, hey, take me off your list, so you can kind of see what it's like. If you have any thoughts or if you have any suggestions, et cetera, please feel free to share that with us at Verde Martin on Facebook. And I just wanted to thank everyone for taking 45 minutes out of their day to learn about understanding why the customer buys.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jill, for presenting today. I'm just going to check quick. Does anybody have any questions for Jill before we?
I do. This is Sarah.
Yeah.
I am selling insurance, and the thing that I struggle with is for many people, insurance is a fear-based product.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And I struggle with how to keep it positive. Obviously it's emphasizing the benefits rather than what causes you to receive them, but it's the big purple elephant in the room. Do you have any suggestions on that?
Yeah, in regards to your initial fact finding is to really understand, so why are they meeting with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously have fear. Or they would not invest the time. So their goal again is to understand what the cost is to protect them from something bad happening. And a lot of times, it is a fear-based product, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, going back to, we all want to be protected. So if we get in a car wreck, we are protected. If most of us want to be protected. We own our home, and if something, there would be a fire, or there would be a terrible storm, et cetera, we want to be protected. And the same is true for life insurance. Is you're not necessarily protecting you, but you're protecting that household. So again,
right.
It's like if you were to design your questions for fact finding specifically to really drive to, what fear do they have? Because we all have fear. We all have, fear of something terrible happening. So, but again, your job is just to help protect them. And that's really what you're communicating is, how can you help protect them from, a couple bad things happening? And you're just paying, the investment that they're making is that, that covering of that risk. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again, Jill. I think we're going to wrap up for the day.
All right.
Anybody who missed it will be able to listen to it online. And so if you want to share that with anybody else, I'll send you the link for that as well.
That'd be great.
Our next training is going to be on October 16th with Brad Yoder from Hayes & Associates, sharing tips on business entity selection, financial reports, and year-end tax planning, because now is the time to get those records in order.
And I can honestly say I've worked with Brad, and he's fantastic, so you guys will really enjoy him.
He is absolutely delightful. And we are going to have registration for that up on the GROW Nebraska website starting tomorrow morning, so it'll be on the rotator. You can just watch for it there. If you're interested in any other training opportunities, or if you're not a member and are interested in becoming a member, feel free to visit grownebraska.org. Thanks again, Jill, and we're also going to give a little shout out to REAP because, again, they did sponsor today. And thank you, everyone who participated. If you need anything else, let me know.
Thanks, Heidi and Jill.
Okay, bye. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.